Hello and welcome back, and in this video we're going to talk about tuples, and tuples are basically comma separated list of values. So for example, if we want to create a tuple, we will simply type t indicating that this is a tuple. If this is just the name, you can write tu tuple double e or anything, but just to make it clear we'll write t. And let's say I want to add some values, so number 1, number 2, number 3, followed by number 4, and lastly the last element, that is 5. And in this case, although it is not necessary, it is common to enclose the tuple in parentheses. So this will help us quickly identify that this is a tuple. And whenever we look at the Python code and we have a parentheses, inside this parentheses we have values separated by commas, we directly know that this is a tuple. Now, to create a tuple with a single element, we have to include the final comma. So for example, if I want to create a tuple and it is just one element, for example, the number 1, and I add it into parentheses, let me print the type of this t. So for example, if I run this code, I'm going to get str indicating that this is a string. However, I wanna have a tuple. So what do? I simply add the comma here. And let me run this one more time. I'm getting the type tuple instead of string. So as you can see here, if we do not add the comma at the end, Python is going to treat this as a string and not a tuple. Now let's move on to creating tuples, and this is another way of creating or constructing the tuple, and this is by using the built-in function tuple. So with no arguments, we can create an empty tuple. So for example, if I want to create the tuple t, it is going to be tuple and empty parentheses. So if I print now this tuple t, I'm going to get empty parentheses. And if I want to add something while creating this, I can add it here inside the arguments. I'm going to get the number 1 with a comma. Remember that if we do not include this comma, Python is going to treat this as a string. Now, let's move on to accessing items and tuple assignment. So let's suppose I have a tuple t, and inside this tuple I have some numbers in strings 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I want to access the first element inside this tuple. So we're going to use the square brackets as before, t square brackets at index 0, and if we run this code, we're going to get the number 1. Now, if we use the negative indexing, -1, I'm going to get the last element in this tuple, and that is the number 4, or the string 4 in this case, since we are storing strings in this tuple t. We can also use the slice operator, and this slice operator selects a range of elements. So for example, if I wanna take these two numbers or these two strings, I can simply type 1 to 3 on this code. I'm going to get 2 and 3, since 1 is 2, the string 2 is at position number 1, and the string 3 is at position number 2, and here we are taking all from 1 until 3 excluded. So this is why we just get two numbers 2 and 3. Now, unlike lists, tuple are immutable. So if we try to change one element in this tuple, we're going to get an error. So let's suppose I want to change the element at position 0 from 1 to 5 as a string, and let me run this code. I'm going to get error type error. The tuple object does not support item assignment. So we can't modify the elements of a tuple, but we can replace one tuple with another, just like what we did with strings. Remember that when we want to change something in a string, we are creating a new string and removing some characters and replacing them with others. So here we can do the same exact thing. So for example, if I want to change this number 1 to 5, I can easily do that by simply assigning t to be equal to the number 5 and plus whatever we have at t from position 1 until the end. And now if I go ahead and print this t, I'm going to get 5, 2, 3, and 4. So what did we do here? We just took this tuple t and slice it using the slice operator, then add the number 5 into it before adding the rest of the elements. So we just remove the number 1, add number 5 using the slice operator here. Then we print it out, we got 5, 2, 3, and 4 as if we replaced the number 1 by the number 5. However, this tuple is not the same as this one before. Now let's move on to tuple assignment. So we have a unique feature in Python, and this is the ability to have a tuple on the right side of the assignment statement. And this allows us to assign more than one variable at a time when the left side is sequenced. So let's suppose I have the tuple t, and in this tuple I have Hadi Yunus, and in this case tuple Hadi and followed by another string Yunus. And in this case, I want to store them in x and y. So I will simply write x and y to be equal to this tuple t. And now if I print out x and then print out y, I'm going to get Hadi and Yunus. So this is how we can assign two character or two variables at the same exact time. However, we have a condition, and this condition is that the number of variables on the left must be equal to the number of variables on the right. So if I have here Hadi Yunus and, for example, the number 4, and I try to execute this program, I'm going to get a value error, too many values to unpack. So it is saying that it expects 2. However, we just added this, and the total is now 3. Even if I remove this and add a variable here, let's say a, and I run this code, I'm going to get another error, and this is not enough values to unpack, expected 3 and got 2. So here we are trying to assign 3 variables at the same time, and inside this tuple we only have 2 variables. Now, sometimes we want to split a string, for example, and it doesn't need to be just a tuple. For example, here we have a string, head.units, and we want to split these into two separate words. We can use xy equal to st, this string we just created, and using the split method and the dot operator as a delimiter, we can split these two words and store them in x and y respectively. So if I run this code, I'm going to get the same exact thing as before, Hadi and Yunus separated by using the delimiter here. Now let's move on to how to compare tuples. So the comparison operator works with tuples and other sequences as we have seen before. And let's suppose I have two tuples of numbers or integers, and in this case tuple 1 will be equal to 1, 2, 3. Tuple 2 will be equal to also 1, 2, and 3. And in this case, let's print is t1 less than t2. And let's run this code. We're going to get false since t1 is clearly equal to t2. So if I tried t1 equal to t2, I'm going to get true. Now, how does this operator work? Let's suppose I have 3 elements in each tuple. However, here I have the element 4, and here I have, instead of 3, I'm having 100. And in this case, if I run this code, t1 is equal to t2, no. And if I try t1 is less than t2, it is going to give me the boolean true. So Here we are comparing the first two elements. Here we have 1 and 1, and they are both equal. So we are jumping to the second element. Then we are comparing the element 2 with the element 4. So 2 is less than 4. We end everything and print out true. We don't look at the other elements even if they are too big. So here, for example, 100 is way bigger than 3. However, we already stopped here at the second element when we found two different elements. And in this case, we are just ignoring everything after this element. Suppose we have so many elements after the element or the integer 2. However, we always get true, that is t1 is less than t2, and this is just because we have 2 and 4 at the position number 1 or the index number 1. So to wrap it up, Python is going to check for the first elements, and in this case 1 and 1 they're equal, so it is going to jump to the second one, and here we have 2 and 4, and 2 is clearly less than 4, so we'll just ignore everything after this and print true since t1 is less than t2. So this is it for the tuples, and in the next video we're going to compare and talk about dictionaries and tuples. So see you then.